Hello, ladies. Here we are again.
Hello.
Hi. Stephanie from Flyleaf, Allie from Flyleaf, Kim from Flyleaf. Yes. And we bid adieu. Kimberly's not here this week, and we look forward to her coming back next week.
Yay, Kimberly.
Yay. Are we shimmying for Kimberly?
Kimberly. Yay.
That feels good.
It does.
What's our topic for today?
No.
No, we don't have a topic?
No.
No is the topic.
Yes.
This sounds like who's on first.
I know, right? It always is like that, but when the four of us or the three of us are together, though, we're kind of get all animated. But no is our topic today.
Yes, no.
Did you KNOW know that NO no is a full sentence?
YES. I did know that.
Exclamation point. It really is. Like, you don't have to provide any further content, any other, descriptives around it. No is a full sentence.
Absolutely. And if you provide too much information around it, then it doesn't really count because the person you're talking with wants to talk you out of your no anyway.
Right.
So if you say, no, I can't take you to the store today, they're going to go, oh, well, can you do it tomorrow? Can you do it Wednesday? Can you do it next week? And you're going to get stuck and you're going to have to do that thing you didn't want to do anyway.
Right.
Or you're providing justification as to why you said no. No, I can't take you to the store because my car's broke down, my kid is sick, whatever. Because then the other person might try to help you with those problems, but not hear your no.
Right.
Right.
Right. So is it okay to say, no, I don't want to?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's selfish?
No.
It's like a round robin.
No, well, because so many people think it is just to say, well, if somebody says, do you want to help me move this weekend? I'm like, no, I don't really want to help you move. Could I? Probably. But do I really want to spend the weekend carrying boxes? Probably not.
Right.
I guess you have to weigh your options, but it is okay to say, no, I don't really want to help.
Right. That sounds like Stephanie's like low cost, high reward thing where you're weighing out all of those options. Like, it doesn't cost me anything but like my back and my time if we're helping somebody move. But knowing the whole picture, is this something I really want to do? Or is this something I'm going to feel resentful about or angry about in the future because I didn't feel like I could say no?
Right.
Or is this relationship worth me in that time? So the relationship with the person is actually weighed into that cost too.
For sure.
Where do you think that concept of not feeling good or not even knowing that you could say no? Like, we work with so many men and women that didn't really know that that no was an option, right?
Right.
Where do you think that stems from?
Childhood? Maybe.
Ooh, good answer. I think you're right about that. Why is it?
I'm thinking family of origin.
Family of origin.
Family of origin, for sure.
So let's explore that one. Like, what kind of family do you think that could have been like?
Very authoritarian. So that really heavy top down, kids are to be seen and not heard, do as I say. So a lot of high rules and low warmth.
No, and also the opposite, where you don't say no because it's rude and you always say yes when somebody asks you to. Or if you can do it, you always say yes. So there's the complete polar opposite of that really structured family. And it's the one that we always do. And despite whatever else we have going on, we always say yes if somebody asks. And I think that's kind of like, that's no boundaries, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think we teach our kids not to say no too. We teach kids that they don't have options.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Like, how many times has somebody said to a little kid, go hug your aunt or uncle, whoever? And they just kind of sheepishly move towards really, really tense, and baby arms out. Like, I don't want to hug you, but people around them are like, go give them a hug, sit on their lap, give them a kiss.
Yeah.
They don't have the option to say no. That body autonomy.
And that leads me, what you just said, leads me to my favorite thing to say all the time is that a yes is not a yes when no is not an option. And so we sometimes give those false yeses, but actually they're kind of resentful and you know, almost like, oh, I don't want to ever do this, but I'm going to say yes, kind of a yes, when really you're not being asked to do something, you're being told to do something, or you're not given the option to not. That's just not on the, for whatever reason, it's not on the table.
Which then becomes coercion.
Correct.
Or if I'm afraid to say no based on the response that I'm going to get, right? But I can't be afraid to rock the boat.
Right. What does that tell you when you're afraid to rock the boat? You can't advocate for yourself because the boat is going to get rocked if you do. What message does that send?
I know internally I'm not living an authentic life because I have a right to live authentically, right, and move myself forward and at any movement based on my own accord and not at the behest of somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. My needs are not important.
Yeah. Virginia Satir talks about, I mean, that's one of the 5 freedoms, right? That she always talks about: the freedom to think what I think, feel what I feel, communicate those with others, the freedom to be in my here and now instead of what was or will be, and then the freedom to not be afraid to rock the boat.
Yeah. And I think when we're told that by advocating for ourselves or asking for what we need, that equates to rocking the boat, then that definitely minimizes us as people.
Right.
And that's, you asked where that sense of not saying no comes from, and it comes from things like that happen too.
Right. Well, and then a lot of times too, if you grew up in a family that didn't teach you how to say no or celebrate you having autonomy and saying no, then you kind of like, a lot of times you marry into that same relationship where you can't say no, or you're afraid to say no, or didn't know that you could actually say no.
Right. And is compliance the same thing as, what was it we were saying, compliance and
consent?
Is compliance the same thing as consent?
No. I put compliance in there as the same as coercion. Like, yeah. Am I saying it just to get along? Or am I really doing it because it's what I'm wanting to do? And I'm choosing to say yes, or because I'm afraid of saying no based on what it is that's going to happen.
Or am I not saying anything?
Right.
Am I just not saying yes or no? I'm just kind of allowing something to happen around me or to me, and I'm moving into a place where, you know, I guess I'll just say nothing and see what happens, but I can't say no and I don't want to say yes.
Right.
That's a hard place. And I think we've all found ourselves there in various situations.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because when that happens, then you get accused of miscommunicating, right? You didn't say no. I didn't say yes either.
Right.
Oh, Lord, you see that playing out, that scenario playing out in so many different avenues.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You see that, and I mean, my brain just kind of snapped a little. I don't know if you saw the actual animated snap that happened, but we talk about that a lot with like sexual assault and boundaries, but it happens in every way. It happens everywhere.
Exactly.
You just assume somebody's going to say yes, and they don't want to do it, but it could be anything like baking cookies for your kid's school thing, you know? I mean, those presumptions that you're going to do something because you didn't jump up and say no it's kind of the same thing, right? Okay, well, I guess I'll do it now, you know, that kind of thing, and that feeling comes up. But then you bake those cookies for school, and they're like little resentment cookies, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, that just kind of popped my head.
Yeah, I think that if we were to really take stock of how much are we comfortable with saying no in our life, and how much do we want to not be afraid of hurting other people's feelings, or being the bad, or the perception of being the bad guy, or being the fuddy-duddy.
And how do you turn down, and I'll use this as an example because we've all been there, school or church or something like that asks you to volunteer for something that honestly either, I mean, for whatever reason, it's not something that you can do. How do you turn that down in a way that doesn't make you feel like a bad parent or a bad part of your community, to say, I can't, you know, and I don't know, how do you handle those situations when they come up?
So the high school I went to was very service oriented, you know, private Catholic school. Servium in Latin was like their big deal. And so we would have to do service hours every year and go out into the community and do something. It was like that part was mandatory, but being able to pick where you wanted to go was how we kind of had autonomy. So I always wanted to do things that involved children or like food banks. So being able to say, no, I don't want to work with the elderly, but I really do enjoy packing boxes of spaghetti. So saying, no, I won't do this, but this is what I am willing to do. So that way when you do, you're doing it with a giving, loving, consenting heart.
Yeah. I think that's fair. You're being authentic to who you are. I also think it's okay to say if someone asks you to volunteer something, and when people come up to you though, they don't always go like, they don't tell you the whole story. They just like, I need you to do something for me. You're like, okay. And then you're like, well, I don't want to do that, but you've already said yes, right? So one of the things you can say too is, well, you can ask me, but if I can do it, I will. If I can't, I'm going to say no, as long as I have that option. And you kind of come out that way. You know, I think that that's fair because we get tricked all the time into saying yes to stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, and sometimes we trick ourselves into things too.
Yeah.
Right. And even if you say yes to something at one point, like, yes, I'll take on this big volunteer project, you can still say no. That's like when it becomes, you know, too much or becomes intrusive or when no is needed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with that. So what are your final thoughts on the word no? What is it how do people learn how to say no that never
So
done?
I'll tell you, one of the things that I know that all of us do that is very beneficial. If you have grown up in a family where you never were able to express the word no and mean it and have your own autonomy in something, it's very difficult to begin to implement that and think you're going to do it perfectly out the door. It feels weird. It is uncomfortable. So you have to practice. And one of the things that we like to do is a little experiential, and you might come across as a little crazy, but who cares? It's really about what it is that you need, and what you need is to be assertive and to learn the word no. That's a God-given right. But one of the things that we like to teach individuals, both male and female, is practice for a weekend saying the word no. Get clear about what it feels like in your mouth and what it sounds like to hear your own voice saying it. Go around saying no to everything. No, I don't want to paint the wall blue. No, I don't want to drive fast on the freeway. No, I don't want to buy a new house. Because you have to get comfortable with it. So that way when you implement it, it's not so jarring and you're that much more assertive hearing yourself doing it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. And I think you too have to also understand that no is just a boundary.
Mm-hmm.
No is a way of having a boundary enforced. And it's a simple, clear way of doing it. It doesn't have to turn all complicated and wonky.
Right.
Yep. And my takeaway from no, working with a lot of adolescents and young people, is just to understand consent fully. That, like Kim said, yes isn't a yes unless no is an option. And if somebody can't answer the question, do you want a glass of water? They can't consent to anything, which means they can't say yes or no. So, and I'm talking about like sexually, especially with our college age population, but you know, with anything. So just like be empathetic for opportunity or like situations where you've had to say no and it's been scary, and know that sometimes it's harder for people than it might be for you.
Right.
Practicing that saying no thing.
And I do what Stephanie does, is have people say the word no and get used to how that feels. But I also say, you know, pick something to take a stand on in the next week. Pick something that really you would say yes to just to not make waves, and say no to it. You don't have to say no to everything. Just pick one thing and say no to it and see how that feels. And there are people in your life that use the fact that you say yes to stuff as part of your relationship. So when you start setting healthy boundaries and you start going like, I'm not saying walk around saying no to everybody and everything, and because you don't want to do it, don't do it. I mean, there are times we do things we don't want to do all the time, but we consent to doing that. And that's a big difference.
Yeah.
But one thing that you feel like, I really don't want to do that, and say no to it and see how that feels and see what the reaction is of the other person.
Right.
Chances are it's going to be pretty anticlimactic for you. They're going to go, okay, walk away. It's going to be a big deal.
Right.
Right.
Well, there's a difference between saying no or not saying no because you're moving into somebody else's world and helping them with something, right? Because you're choosing to. That's fine. And going off of what you were saying before, sometimes people need you to show up in their life the way that they're used to you showing up. So when you walk around all of a sudden being boundaried and being assertive and, you know, saying no because you know is what it is that you want, sometimes there are people that are not going to like that. And you are going to get comfortable with the potentiality, not all, but there could be some people that don't continue on your life anymore. And that's their stuff, not yours.
Yeah. And I just want to reiterate again, I don't want anybody to hear us saying that just because you don't want to do something, you never have to do things you don't want to do, because that is not the way to live. There are things we don't want to do, but we do them as our choice. And I think that's the big difference.
Absolutely.
And we do them for people. We do things for people we care about.
Absolutely.
We do things for ourselves because we have to. I mean, I hate going to the dentist, but I go every 6 months. You know, I'd much rather tell my dentist no.
Trust me, my dentist knows that.
The dentist. All right, so how do we find us?
Thank you for watching Flyleaf Talks About Stuff. If you want to find out more about us, you can visit us on the internet at flyleafcounseling.com. You can check us out on Facebook by searching Flyleaf Counseling or searching us on YouTube at Flyleaf Counseling.
Perfect. All right, next time. See ya.